Welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads, a podcast all about beer from a West Virginia perspective. I'm Charles Bachway, your host. Today we're diving deep into the subject of a new hop variety that was just released to the commercial market this year. That new hop is called Vera, and it was developed under a United States Department of Agriculture program that opens this hop up to commercial production. Unlike many of the new hop cultivars that have created brewing excitement over the past decade or so, the Vera hop is not patented, which means it can be grown and cultivated by hop farmers anywhere in the country who want it. For our discussion today, I have with me a first-time guest and another guy who's been with us several times before. For her first time on West Virginia Beer Roads is Alexa Long. Alexa is a representative for Hollingberry & Son hops out of Yakima, Washington. But Alexa lives in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Alexa, welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads.
Thanks, Charles. Good to be here.
And returning as a guest is Sam Fonda, who's been for many years now, the head of brewing operations for Weathered Ground Brewery in Coolidge, West Virginia. Sam, welcome back to West Virginia Beer Roads.
Thanks for having me as always, Charles.
Well, Sam, it's nice to be sitting here on top of the mountain at your brewery again. For folks who have not yet visited here, it's an absolutely beautiful spot surrounded by a large meadow out in the country on top of a beautiful mountain plateau. I'm going to move over to Alexa now. And Alexa, when I first heard about you from Sam, I was very surprised to learn that we had a hop company representative living nearby. How'd that come about?
So I used to brew in Charlotte, North Carolina for about 5 years. Actually, this is kind of nostalgic because Sam and I go back like 15 years. But anyway, I brewed for a while. I quit my job and I traveled and I rock climbed. And during that phase of my life, I actually randomly met Matt Hollingberry, who now runs the company. And we got to chatting and he was like, I could use an East Coast representative. And I was like, I could use a full-time job. So the job just totally fell into my lap. And obviously it's kind of a natural transition to the supplier side from the brewing side. And I could kind of live anywhere on the East Coast. I didn't quite have a home base at the time that I got the job. But when I was living in Charlotte, I was super into rock climbing, and I would basically come up to Fayetteville every Friday and go home every Sunday. And when I got this job, there was the opportunity to actually move here. So I jumped on it, and I love it.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you here living in our beautiful West Virginia and certainly in one of the best parts of the state there in the Fayetteville, New River Gorge area. That is a great place to live.
I won't argue with that.
Well, Sam, you've told me in the past that you use a lot of hops from Hollingberry. So why did you choose to use them as your main hop supplier?
That would be because Alexa called me and said she had a new job selling hops.
So you knew her in Charlotte. That's where you guys got acquainted, she just says. So, I know you work for Triple C Brewing. And
I did, but before that...
It was even before that. Wow.
Yeah, before that, I worked for the Old Mecklenburg Brewery, and before that, I worked at a homebrew supply shop in Charlotte, and Alexa did too. And we basically just worked for free brewing supplies.
Well, I hear people say that will work for food. Now it's work for beer, okay, or brewing supplies to make the beer. I like that. Nah. So Alexa, I discovered the hop we're going to talk about today, Vera, last spring while I was attending the Craft Brewers Conference in Indianapolis. I tasted it both in hop pellets and in a pale ale sample, and I was quite impressed. But I'll now defer to you. In your opinion, what is it that makes Vera attractive to brewers?
We're super excited about Vera. First of all, it's a public hop variety, which we at Hollingberry are big supporters of. It's great for the environment, it's great for the brewer, it's great for the grower. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the hop itself, sensory-wise, it's just very bright and punchy. It's kind of intense ripe peach and mango and tropical notes. We're very excited about it.
Yeah. And Sam, now that you've used it to brew a small batch of IPA, does it have characteristics you think makes it stand out?
I do. I think a lot of these tropical hops have a lot of similarities to them, but there's always just certain nuances, certain small things that kind of differentiate it from other ones. And it's, vast majority of hops that went into this small batch were the Vera hop, and it's noticeable to me that it's slightly different, but still has a lot of the same attributes as some of those hops like Mosaic and Strata that are very, very fruity. It's definitely one that I'm happy to be able to get from Hollingberry.
Well, Alexa, I want to move off just talking about Vera specifically to the fact that when you're out working with other brewers around the East Coast, what are some of the key factors that you think make a hop a superstar in today's pale ale and IPA craft beer world?
I mean, hops are kind of the defining flavor profile for IPAs, right? So it's citrusy or piney or tropical or dank or whatever it is. Whereas styles like a Belgian style is defined by its yeast, and maybe like a stout is defined by the malt, right? So hops kind of define IPAs, which is super fun. Yeah, so I guess I'd also just say that's kind of subjective. I think the brewer gets to decide what they're looking for and what makes a hop a superstar. Some people like the super dank stuff, especially people out on the West Coast. And over on the East Coast, people seem to like the more tropical, like sweeter, candy-like. Some people like crazy stuff like the coconut or the dill or, woody type characters. So it's totally up to the brewer.
Yeah, and so even with just sticking with like really popular current styles of beer and, the bigger sellers of these kinds of, are the ones that get all this, the praise and like the IPA world. I mean, they're all very hop-centric in one way or another. But there must be dozens of them, really, that are commonly used. Even beers we see here in West Virginia. It's not just like one or two hops like it might have been 30, 40 years ago. It's now, blends of different hops and things. So I'm kind of wondering if you could fill in a little bit about where do these hops come from, all these different types of hops and names of hops. Let's talk for a minute about where Vera came from. I read it was originally developed in 2011 at Washington State University. It's a cross between Brewer's Gold hop and a wild hop cultivar or two. So how do new hops get developed?
So new hops get developed in breeding programs, and there's all kinds of breeding programs that, individual farms have or suppliers. In this case for Vera, it's from the USDA Public Hop Breeding Program in Washington, just outside of Yakima. So yeah, like you said, this one was first bred in 2011. They often take 10 plus years to actually come to market, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's what I always found amazing, that these are agricultural products that you don't just develop in a lab exactly. You have to grow them, and you can't grow them but once a season. Mm-hmm. That means years of development, right? Years
of development and research and figuring out, what the yield is, and are they disease resistant? That's like kind of the first thing, is are they even worthwhile from a sustainability standpoint? Yeah, because I could see you having one that just tastes super great, but it's very disease susceptible. Well, that wouldn't be something people would want to grow. Yeah, exactly. So why bother on that? And then the second part, if they yield well and if they're disease resistant, is does a brewer even like them? So, and during hop harvest, there's actually something annually called Hop Source that the BA puts on, and brewers come from all over for hop harvest for selection. But while they're there, they can go to Hop Source and they can actually do sensory on all kinds of experimental varieties from the USDA Public Hop Breeding Program, and so that feedback is crucial to a hop coming to market. So when you say a public hop, and I mentioned that this hop wasn't patented, I assume are those similar terms? If it's patented, it isn't open to the public to use unless you buy the rights or something or pay to... Yeah, so it's basically public versus proprietary. Yeah, okay. Explain that just a little bit, because I think our listeners
probably may have never heard that distinction in hops before.
Yeah, so proprietary hops, some that come to mind are the notorious Citra and Mosaic and Simcoe, and I mean, there's all kinds.
Yeah, and those are extremely popular hops, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and they're great hops. And then some of the most popular, I'd say, are well-known public hops, so like Cascade, Centennial, El Dorado, Amarillo, Idaho 7.
Well, you mentioned that Hollingberry likes to use mostly public hops, but I mean, maybe it's not mostly, but explain how your preferences, I mean, your company's preferences are.
Yeah, so like I said, we're just all about the free market and fairness, and public hops are bred for sustainability, like I mentioned, yield and disease resistance, so not for profit. So that keeps costs lower for brewers, so that's great. On the grower side, they have autonomy, so they're not locked into exclusive contracts and licensing fees. The grower gets to decide what acreage to plant, how much to harvest, when to harvest, who to sell to. So they're not being, controlled by the patent exactly. And this gives them more bargaining power and flexibility. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good, because I mean, I think that what I want our listeners to take away from this is that not only is there a lot of variety of hops out there, and that new Vera variety will compete in that market, but the market's divided up into whether they're public hops available to any grower, like a grower here in West Virginia, I assume, could even grow a public hop.
Yeah, that's another benefit of public hops for sure.
Yeah. And we got a few around, and I hope they get to try this Vera. I mean, I don't have any idea if our climate would support it, but we can find out later. Sam, I want to get back to you for a second, because I see you just brought out a bunch of hop pellets. And, of course, hop pellets are just ground up hops that are compressed into little pellets, and that's what brewers these days, at least small brewers especially, prefer to use in making beer. So, guys, let's talk about aroma and flavors here. And, Sam, I see you've brought out some glasses that have these hop pellets in it, and we're going to pass those pellets around in the glass. And so you take the lead on what we should do to do our little sensory analysis of these hops.
Yeah, we're passing around Vera hops. I have them in a snifter glass, which might be good for sniffing, but I recommend taking a few pellets out and sort of crushing them in your fingers, getting them sort of crushed in your hand, and then rubbing them together. Alexa, I'm sure, knows all about this process for sensory.
Well, I'm spoiled because I get to assess whole cones at Hop Harvest, and honestly, it's really difficult to do it in the pellet form. I actually like to soak it in like a very light neutral beer for 24 hours and kind of make a tea that way.
Hey, that's great advice. Yeah, so you're saying taking, if somebody you want to analyze the flavors of pellets, that you take a pellet, crush it up a little bit, put it in some beer, or let it soak in a neutral beer.
A little bit more than a pellet, maybe, like an ounce or so, but yeah.
Like in a Miller Lite or something.
Yeah, actually, if you can get those aluminum screw cap cans for a Miller Lite or Coors or whatever, those are really great for this.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's because those don't have a whole lot of competing hop flavors in them.
Yeah, well, and the screw caps are very...
Well, I meant the type of beer.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Right. All right, so anybody want to talk about what this Vera brings out to you in some way? I know you guys are the ones that are more experienced, certainly, in hop sniffing than I am.
No, they smell wonderful. They smell fresh. I don't detect anything off about them. Very, very floral smelling. And
yeah, like I said, it's hard to get, for me, like too nuanced or specific in this particular form in the pellet form.
Gotcha.
But the gist of it is, do you like it? Is it bright? Is it, you can go as surface or as deep as you want with it, but at the end of the day, it's, do you like it?
yeah,
Okay.
They smell great.
And then I think that one way to usually describe or distinguish flavors, aromas in a hop would be if we smell some other types of hops, some other varieties of hops next to this one. And Sam, maybe you could tell about a couple more you have there.
Sure. So because we're going to be tasting a beer brewed with Vera hops, I also brought out Amarillo hops because we're also going to be, tasting and comparing other beers, and we brew a couple of beers with Amarillo hops, kind of being the standout hop in those beers. So it's fun to always smell and compare. Amarillo, I think, is probably a lot different than the Vera hops. To me, the smell is much stronger.
Oh, no doubt.
I don't mean that in a positive or negative way. It's just the aroma from the pellets.
The potency is much greater in the aroma, right? And I guess as it should be. Shouldn't say should, but I mean, I guess if you're really comparing aroma hops, that some are going to be on the high end of aroma and some are going to be on the more moderate end of aroma. And that doesn't mean that, they all work equally well on each beer, but that's maybe where you pick out. And I understood that, like, maybe the Vera hop, as people developed it, as people tried it and brewers tried it, that they were trying it not only in pale ales but also in lagers. So apparently they're thinking of this hop, of the Vera hop, as a lager hop.
I'd be super interested to brew a lager with that hop.
And this Amarillo, boy, that would probably overpower about any pale lager anyway.
Yeah, the Vera's low alpha, and I think if used the right way, that would be great.
Yeah. And now for the proof of the flavor and aroma qualities of Vera, we're going to taste it in a brewed beer. Sam, please introduce your Vera Good IPA.
Sure. We brewed the Vera Good IPA on our small batch system, so it was just 15 gallons for the tap room. We built the grain bill, all the malt for the beer, a lot like we would any hazy IPA, except we fermented it with a more neutral American yeast. But it's still pretty cloudy, pretty juicy. And I think using that yeast kind of gets to showcase the hops a little bit more because you're not getting any flavor from the yeast. But it's full of wheat and flaked oats like most of our hazy IPAs, and all the barley in this one comes from Carolina Malt House in Cleveland, North Carolina.
Okay, we have Vera Good IPA in our glass. Sam, let's talk about the aromas and flavors.
It smells tropical to me, but not over the top. It's definitely tastes juicy. I think the marketing for the hops was used. I don't remember if it was who used it. Maybe it was just Brewers Reviews that said pineapple flavored lifesaver candy. But so I definitely can see where they're going with that.
Alexa, do you agree?
I agree for sure. I think I got kind of peach and pineapple up front, and then just in the nose, and then when you drink it, maybe it was because as Sam was describing it, but I for sure see the lifesaver thing, sweetness to it, candy-like.
Certainly all the descriptions that I've been reading were both tropical fruits and stone fruits. So, that covers pineapples and peaches, and then all the things in between.
Yeah, it's a really good beer.
Yeah, and it's. I think maybe even you might have mentioned earlier, or somebody did maybe, that this is not it's not as high a alpha acid hop, which means it wouldn't maybe have as much strong bitterness. Or explain that.
Yeah, you could still use just more of it to target a certain bitterness level, but I think Sam did a great job at keeping the bitterness low, appropriate for the style, and just showcasing the hop.
We only used it in the dry hop.
Okay.
We used a lot of it, but only in the dry hop.
Wow.
Yeah, because I think you told me earlier when I wrote an article about this that you used your other hops just a small amount, but that would probably, even in the whirlpool, you didn't put anything in the kettle.
No, not while it was boiling.
Yeah.
No. That's
what I mean, in the boil, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's probably a lesson that you learn only by brewing. That you could read about it, of course, but to really understand how you extract these flavors and maintain the characteristics you want, it's a big difference whether you put hops in a boiling kettle of beer or wait till it's cooled and then they're in the fermenter even. So
it would be interesting to use it in the in the kettle during the boil too, though. We talked about brewing a lager earlier, maybe just using a little of that for your flavor and aroma hops would be very interesting to see what else the hop has to offer.
Yeah. Well, Alexa, do you know how Hollingberry got involved with the hops in general? I know that company goes back a few years. Could you tell a little bit, just briefly, maybe the history of Hollingberry?
Yeah, so we are fourth generation family owned, been around since 1942. So Matt Hollingberry runs the company now. His dad Bud is involved as well, and his great grandfather Babe is the one who started the company. And Matt didn't totally know if he was gonna be in the family business and have a career when he was graduating college. I don't know when that was, maybe 2008 or so. But then it was kind of the start of the big craft beer boom, and he moved back home and had a job.
Yeah, so it's I guess it's not certainly not one of the larger hop companies. But do you have any idea of how you fit in? Are you a little medium sized?
I would say we're medium sized. We work with breweries of all sizes. All over the country and all over the world even. So we're both a supplier and a processor, I guess you could say. So we do have our own pelletizer. So we work with hop farms in Yakima and Oregon and Idaho, and we're getting everything in bales all throughout harvest. And so we pelletize, lab analyze, package, store, distribute. And we've got a strong focus on procurement and quality. So we're going around all throughout harvest and just trying to get the best slots from the best farms that we can, whether that's, in the kiln or the bale room, just trying to get the best hops we can.
Yeah, and that's you're right in the middle of Yakima, certainly right in the middle of the hop growing country in America anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
Palm Springs of Washington.
So, do you get to go out to the farms much?
Yeah, I'm actually headed out on Sunday, so I'll be out there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, because we're right in the middle of the hop harvest, right?
That's right.
Yeah, this time of year anyway.
Yeah, it's an amazing, eye-opening operation. I highly recommend any brewer to go out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It just connects you, obviously, to the hops themselves. I think you should explore all, the raw materials, and just you gain an appreciation for them even more so. And it connects you, obviously, to the grower, which is very important. The growers love talking to brewers from all over the world. They don't really get a chance that much to do that outside of harvest.
So I would assume that Hollingberry holds special activities and things, or at least welcomes some of their brewers or people that brew with their hops during this season.
Yeah, for sure. So we have people come visit from all over, and obviously we host them for a selection, which is super fun, and then we'll go tour around the valley so that they get to meet the growers and tour the fields and the picking facilities, and it's a good time.
And you said, of course, it's a national company. You sell hops all over the country. Certainly here in West Virginia, you're selling to Weathered Ground Brewery and Coolidge, but are there other West Virginia breweries that you service?
Yeah, let's see. We work with Stumptown,
which is another big IPA brewer.
Yes, and High Ground and Cacapon Mountain.
Right, yeah. All very good breweries as far as all the ratings go in our state. Yeah, great. Yeah, so and are you looking for additional customers? Is that always an option?
Sure, send them my way.
You have enough hops to supply more brewers in West Virginia?
We've got you.
Okay, well, I tell you what, I will add your contact information to the article about this podcast on brilliantstream.com. So, folks, you want to hear more about Hollingberry and get a hold of Alexa as far as getting some hops, you can do that by reading the article on brilliantstream.com. Well, from your experience, Alexa, what are some of the more important hop varieties that have helped build the contemporary craft beer market during the past few decades?
Let's see. Cascade is just such a pioneer. You know, you look at Sierra Nevada Pale
Pale Ale, that's a signature hop for that one. Yeah.
That's a signature hop. I mean, Centennial is kind of a signature hop. You look at Bell's Two Hearted.
Yeah, it has been. I guess it still is a very popular beer in West Virginia. I mean, we're not all that far from Michigan, and certainly their beers get down here, and we love them.
Yeah. I mean, Amarillo, Chinook, all of those kind of more widely known public hops kind of define like the 90s, I would say.
Yeah.
Like the past decade or two has kind of been more about proprietary hops. So obviously there's been a wild explosion with Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe.
Yep.
Australian and New Zealand varieties as well. So there's some Southern Hemisphere ones.
That's something that I want to talk to you just a bit about. I mean, I know you guys aren't raising New Zealand hops here, but that has been something to me that's just amazing. A small little island, well, relatively small, out in the middle of the Southern Pacific somewhere, that all of a sudden, their hops have become so hot in America, that our brewers are demanding. We're seeing all kinds of brewers make just specialty batches, not their main beer maybe with all the New Zealand hops, but they're doing a lot of specialty stuff with New Zealand. What do you think that's happened with that? That I know they've been selling hops for a much longer time, but I mean, in recent years, it just seems like it's exploded more.
Yeah, well, they've got a good growing region, and their flavor and aroma profile is kind of just like nothing that we really have here.
I don't know. That's a little bit like Vera.
I mean, that's true. Vera's giving them a run for their money.
Well, that's what I would say. Buy American. If you want that flavor profile, that kind of a little bit more tropical and, of course, very juicy, that works well in a lower bitterness beer, in a hazy IPA, or even a pale ale. I think this Vera, which we're drinking right now, my goodness, this is a good beer.
Wow, I love this. You're selling my hops better than I can. But I do think that people are looking for maybe that kind of flavor profile or from domestic public hops, because the days where people were spending over $20 a pound for hops are kind of just over. Like, COVID has obviously shifted things, and the beer market has shifted, and people are more concerned about their price point, and they're not so willing to spend $25 a pound on hops anymore. Or more.
Yeah, Sam, you got any comments on that? What makes hops popular, the new hop varieties?
Yeah, it's just exotic flavors, and the wow factor of people maybe that have never tasted Nelson Sauvignon hops or any of these like super tropical, super different hops that taste kind of like white wine grapes and stuff like that. But then we tend to always fall back on what we personally love, and a lot of our clientele does as well. Very citrusy, very piney, very stone fruit that aren't quite as expensive, coming all the way from New Zealand. Yeah,
and that's another advantage. Assuming this hop, Vera, catches on with growers, like I hope it will, it's something that it should bring down the price. I mean, the price of this hop compared to some of those proprietary and certainly New Zealand hops, this is going to be much more affordable for brewers.
Yeah, and we love to use American-made hops in our flagship beers, and then kind of throw in some New Zealand and Australian hop forward IPAs, kind of just in the mix. But
well, let me talk about that for a minute with you. Flavor trends in beer, they affect the hop market, but also the hop development of new flavors in hops affects the beer market. I mean, it seems like it's going both ways. How do you see that going on here in West Virginia? I mean, are people interested in all these new flavors of hops? Do you see that at your brewery?
It's kind of like I guess you would call it a niche. Like it's a small amount of people in West Virginia, but they're loud about it. You know what I mean? So,
of course we are. Yeah, like podcasters.
Well, so the vast majority of people just looking for something more tame or something that they've had before. But then you have people that are a little more well-traveled and have been to some bigger cities and tried some beers made with some of these newer hop varieties, and so they they come in, if we don't have something like that, they're upset about it. So we try to have a little bit of everything here.
Alexa, you have any comments on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's kind of both ends of the spectrum, like Sam said, but I think that also just drinkability is a flavor trend. Beers that are approachable and enjoyable. The days of like bottle releases and long lines at 8 a.m. for the latest hazy IPA release, I think are out. I don't know. Maybe they're in at Treehouse. I don't know. But pastry stouts and mixed fermentation beers are not in vogue like they once were. And trusted flagship beers seem to be trending. Like consumers are wanting what they know and love instead of risking their hard-earned money, which doesn't go very far these days, on something that's unfamiliar and uncertain.
Right. I think that in West Virginia, too, a lot of us in our beer community think, our taste palates across the drinking public are maybe a year or two behind, sort of the leading edge, hot markets of beer, craft beer in America, so that we haven't yet run the course on these hoppy IPAs. I mean, not necessarily bitter IPAs. I don't think we want them too bitter, but just in general, we like these. It seems to be our IPA makers here in the state. You mentioned Stumptown, and they're an IPA-centric brewery, and we have others, who do feature a lot of IPAs at the same time. I mean, not everybody has IPA in their lineup, but some of them have 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And the ones that have 4 or 5 seem to be selling well. Still here in West Virginia, where I talk to people in some other markets that maybe say they think it's peaked. I don't know if it's peaked here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that IPAs are alive and well. I touched on drinkability, but IPAs are still alive and well, and the haze craze, at least on the East Coast, kind of continues to drive the demand for the aroma hops and the sweeter tropical hops that we mentioned.
So you see that from your other customers across the East Coast? I mean, a lot.
For sure.
Yeah. Sam, while we're talking about current hot hop varieties, Sam, you're going to pour us a beer. I think you have us a beer with a second hop in it that we're going to sample that and talk about that and compare it to the Vera hop. Our glasses are full, and Sam, you're on.
Yeah, so this is our Tallahatchie IPA. It is, most of our beers are themed after things in West Virginia or family or things like that. But this is my one Mississippi nod because that's where I'm from. This is the river that runs through my hometown. So I had to name something, after back home. But what's interesting about it is we just had the Vera IPA. This is the same grain bill pretty much, and the same ABV. And the same yeast, it's just completely different hops. And so it's kind of fun to compare that way.
Yeah. You want to talk about either of you, Alexa, Sam, about what these different hops bring to this beer versus what we had in Vera?
Sure. We use a lot of Amarillo hops, which are one of the hop varieties we smelled a little while ago that were very pungent. And we also use a lot of Centennial hops in it. We're really just shooting for a good balanced American IPA here.
Yeah, when I mentioned IPAs, what I kind of like to talk about, there's major style divisions in IPAs, and some blend and they're in the middle, but we've always got the West Coast, we got the East Coast or New England, and then I would call this beer kind of in the middle, one we call a mid-coast, or I like to call a mid-coast, kind of like a Bell's Two-Hearted, which is also a Centennial. Well, it's 100% Centennial. So, this beer has some of those same characteristics, though, really a lot of them.
Yeah. It's citrusy, it's fruity, it's dank, it's all those things, but all in harmony.
So, Alexa, you guys supply hops for all the styles of IPAs, because you're certainly strong in the American, Pacific Northwest hops. So, how did you kind of define those differences?
First of all, the beer is great. It's definitely a little bit more citry, whereas the Vera was a little bit more stone fruit and tropical, but pretty similar and really great. I mean, West Coast hops in general are usually clear and crisp and bitter and piney and citrus forward. And then your hazy or New England styles are usually softer, sweeter, juicy, tropical, low bitterness.
And would you say, though, I guess that brewers just, it kind of happened. These camps, I don't know if the brewers or it was the drinkers of beer who defined these categories. I mean, just because you were in California doesn't mean you would make a West Coast style. I mean, you can make anything. But I just wondered, then are there certainly camps of hops, which we've sort of talked about a little through this discussion, camps of the different hops that are also in, East Coast versus West Coast. I mean, you don't have a ton of overlap. I'm sure there's some.
Yeah, I mean, some are versatile and can go both ways, and some, like West Coast, I would say is kind of defined by like CTZ and Chinook, those piney varieties, and Centennial and Amarillo and Comet. As far as more new school, Strata, and then there's a newer one called Mackenzie out of the West Coast Hop Breeding Company. And it's very classic West Coast. And then for the hazy category, Southern Hemisphere varieties for sure, both for kind of their flavor profiles and like their ability to add haze. And then like El Dorado, Idaho 7 is a great one, very pineapple-y, Azaka, and of course Vera.
Yeah, now we have Vera added to that. And, you just mentioned those more East Coast preferred hops. And we see a lot of those in West Virginia. And I don't know, of course, you're not necessarily servicing all the brewers here in the state, but I imagine you've sold a good bit of those here, at least to the brewers you've sold to. We have maybe mention internationally, I know in Germany, and especially I guess that's in the Bavarian region, the hop farmers there are also not just resting on their laurels of the basic hops they've had for years, but they've also developed some newer varieties like the New Zealand people have. I mean, they've bred new things that have certainly been in our market. And I think, Sam, you might have even had one or two of those Bavarian hops in some of your beers.
Hallertau Blanc. That's our primary hop that we use in our winter IPA collaboration or partnership that we do with the local ski resort here, Winter Place Ski Resort. That hop is so dominant. Like I feel like I keep scaling it back to try to make it for where the other hop can be seen a little bit in it, and it's still just like you can taste it all the way through.
I think earlier, Alexa, you mentioned that you encourage people anyway to visit a hop farm if they get a chance. And is that something that there's a kind of what process, would a person go through if they wanted to visit a hop farm, especially if you're from here in West Virginia, but you happen to be headed out to the Pacific Northwest and you want to see a hop farm? How would you recommend a person get started doing that?
So you have to contract hops first and foremost. With Hollingberry, there's no minimum requirements to either contract or select your lots. So if you want to contract 88 pounds of something and come out to Yakima just for the experience and for selection, then we would love to have you. We don't discriminate over size.
Okay, so a small West Virginia brewery could also make appointments with you, and you'd show, your company, and you'd show them around if they made it out to the
totally. We love having people out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so would you take them then around to actual growers and farms if they visited your Yakima area?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, we work with 15 to 20 farms in the Yakima Valley. So usually a day out in Yakima would be something like maybe you do a morning selection for an hour or so. So say you're there for Cascade that you contracted, and so we present you with the 6 lots of Cascade that we have available, and you get to select your lot, and we tell you where what farm that lot came from. Maybe we go to lunch and get some amazing tacos because there's really good Mexican food out there. And then we go to a farm. Ideally, it's really cool if you can go visit the farm that you actually selected. That's always fun. And you'll just kind of tour the picking facility, and it's just so amazing out there. Like, to be in the valley, I don't know. I can't describe it clearly, but you'll have to come see for yourselves.
Yeah, the only thing, I've never been on the ground out there, but I remember years ago, oh gosh, maybe in the early 90s, that I was flying from probably Pittsburgh to Seattle. And, you're looking at a beautiful clear day, looking out the windows, and I'm seeing all these forms of agriculture down below me that I didn't recognize. And just per chance, guy next to me said, "Oh, those are hop farms."
Yeah, I mean, it's all agriculture out there.
Yeah.
We actually have a whole fruit side of the business as well. So apples and cherries and nectarines and pluots.
Yeah, I mean, from way over here in the East Coast side, I mean, most of us don't get out to Washington State very often, if ever. And we don't recognize how much agriculture that state does. I mean, it is amazing. Yeah, certainly we know, I mean, most people have heard of Washington apples. Hops is just not a crop unless you're in the brewing industry you probably think about. But it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. I mean, Yakima has 75% of the country's hops out there.
Wow. Man, that's crazy. Crazy good. Well, Sam, before we close this podcast today, here at Weatherground Brewery, are you guys doing any special events and things, or participating in activities that you'd like for our listeners to know about?
Sure. I always like to throw a plug out for our Oktoberfest celebration. This year it's going to be Saturday, September 27th.
What goes on at your Oktoberfest celebration?
A lot of Oktoberfest beer drinking out of our new steins that will be coming in. They'll be for sale. We've got live music, got great food all day from the Lutheran Church here.
Yeah, so it's not just your normal pizzas and stuff from your own kitchen. This is a special Oktoberfest food?
Yes, and it's just a really... It's hard to put your finger on if it's more chill and relaxed or if it's more upbeat and celebratory and vibrant. It's always a really relaxed day, but it's also just a lot of celebrating, the season, and it's nothing better than fall in West Virginia.
Well, something I'm very excited about trying this year here at Weatherground is the special beers you brewed for the Oktoberfest season. And in the past, you've had AJ's Fest beer, which was a very nice amber lager style, like the traditional old-fashioned Oktoberfest. It's been around for a couple hundred years probably. And this year, I understand you've got a new beer for Oktoberfest. So why don't you talk about both of them, really?
Yeah. So AJ's is still going to be here. We haven't discontinued it or anything. It's arguably our favorite beer that we make. But there was always sort of a demand for a more modern fest beer, more golden colored and a little bit lighter and easier to drink. And so we have brewed that as well. And now you have both options, both on draft as well as can form. The AJ's is a traditional Märzen beer, and it's a little more malty, a little more amber colored, a little more caramel, whereas our new fest beer is still very, very malty, but a little lighter bodied, easier to drink, crisp, but both of them are tasting delicious, and we're very proud of them.
Yeah, and what Sam's talking about really are the two styles that we get in Oktoberfest beers. One is a maltier, amber-colored, typically, beer, and the other is a lighter, much lighter, but maybe even a higher ABV. Are these very similar in ABV?
Very similar.
Okay.
Very similar.
Very similar this year. And again, the name for the Fest beer?
Is just Fest beer.
Oh, well, there you go. Make it simple. Yeah, and those are both available in cans, and they should be in the market and stores which you normally see Weatherground beers, right?
Yes.
And is it also out in draft at some of the bars and restaurants?
Absolutely. We're doing both draft and cans.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing that. So we're here just about as we're recording this podcast, we're very close to the beginning of the official Oktoberfest season. Yeah. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this up today. I think we've covered the new Vera hop so well. It's a beautiful hop in the beer that Sam made with it, Vera Hop IPA. Before we close, that one, you're brewing a big batch because we just had the pilot batch. Talk about maybe when you expect that beer to be in the market, and will it be in cans and stuff like that?
We're hoping to brew it within the next 2 weeks, so be on the lookout for it within the next month or so.
Okay, yeah. So in the next month or so, you should get and it'll still be named the Vera Good IPA, right?
Vera Good IPA made with hops from Hollingberry and Son hops.
All right. And Alexa, thank you, too, for joining us. It's the first time we've had a hop representative and a hop expert on this podcast.
I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, so you're coming to the end here. We're going to wrap this up for today. And thank you guys for listening in to West Virginia Beer Roads. West Virginia Beer Roads is a production of BrilliantStream.com.